Hey guys, so if you're like me and you're scrolling around on Christian YouTube or whatever, you're inevitably going to come across some of these discernment ministries, right? Well, some of these guys are doing it, in good faith, and they're doing fine, and they're just going there and exposing false doctrines, okay? Sure, fine, go for that. It's a good thing that needs to be done, okay? But there are others on here who it seems like, I'm not saying they are, but it seems like that they only exist to tear down the body, to deunify the body. Now let me talk about what I mean a little bit. So you will have people that gets on here and they'll show a clip of somebody who is disagreeing with the YouTuber on a secondary issue, okay? And you know, this YouTuber will say, "Oh, this is heresy. Oh, church history through thousands of years of church history, and no one's ever said this." And they'll call him a heretic, say that this secondary issue is a gospel issue, which is implying that the person's going to hell. But no, they don't want to say that. They just want to call it a gospel issue so that they don't have to say that the person's unsaved and going to hell, okay? So you've got these discernment ministries out here, right? And they're really not doing anything productive. They'll show this guy doing something, saying something crazy, right? The YouTuber will say, "Oh, this is heresy. The church history through all this time, no one's ever said this." Well, okay, I'm gonna tell you some problems that I got with this kind of stuff. Okay, the word heresy. Okay, you call somebody a heretic that you don't agree with. Okay, just calling somebody a heretic is worthless. Unless you're going to sit there and give a good explanation on what the problem is, the word calling someone a heretic is worthless, and it's going to not encourage people to want to come over to your side. Why don't you do it in a way that is, apt to get someone to believe you, that is on that side. If you're going to get all confrontational with somebody, they're going to get defensive and not want to listen to you. They're going to think you're coming off like some kind of unpleasant person. So that's the word, the calling people heretic stuff. Then you have all this church history, Okay, church history from the very beginning. Okay, you've got people disagreeing on pretty much every subject. Okay, the church fathers, church history, there is so much disagreement. There is rarely any issues where the church history is in just total agreement. Okay, just like the word calling someone a heretic, saying, "Oh, church history this, church history that," it's worthless, man. It really is worthless. Unless you can give some supporting evidence here. There are very few issues from church history that's going to be so unified against a certain thing. It's just ridiculous. Okay, and then you have this whole epidemic of people taking secondary issues, blowing it up, and then they'll say, "Oh, this somehow they'll find some kind of way in which it may sort of maybe almost relate to just the simple gospel," and they'll say, "Oh, this is a gospel issue. If they believe this way, then this is a gospel issue," and which is implying that the person that they're talking about isn't saved, and that the person is going to go to hell. It's ridiculous. Why don't you just come out and say, "Oh, this person's not saved, this person's going to hell, and anyone that believes this way is going to go to hell"? Okay? How is this stuff being productive to the body of Christ? Alright? That's what I want to know. How is this helping anything? It is not, okay? It is not helping anything at all. If you want to explain these things in a good, productive way to people, do it, okay? Going around heresy hunting, saying, oh, this person isn't saved, oh, this person isn't saved. If you believe this way, it's a gospel issue and you're going to hell, blah, blah, blah. You know, where are all, you've got all these discernment ministries, and trust me, I understand where a lot of these guys are coming from. They're passionate on their position. They just think they are just totally right, and there's nothing else to it. Their position is just totally right. Anyone else's position is heresy and they're going to hell. They'll say, I actually got this response. I asked a person, I said, have you ever considered just building up the body instead of calling things gospel issues and blowing it up and taking secondary issues and blowing it up into gospel issues? Have you ever thought of just building up the church instead of trying to divide it? He says, oh, I'm just building up the real church. So anyone that disagrees with him is a heretic and going to hell. But he doesn't say it that way, you see. He doesn't say it that way. Why not? Why not be straight up, brother? You know, this kind of stuff really aggravates me. You know, the body of Christ is already divided enough as it is. We don't need any more division. You know, where are all the bridge building ministries? Where are all the unity ministries? This stuff could be accomplished. Imagine what the body could do if it was more unified. Imagine the good things that could be done. All the money that could be raised to go to good things. You know, in theory, you know how organizations are, though. But look, the fact of the matter is this stuff is ridiculous. All right, there's too much of this. If you're going to have a discernment ministries, point out and what you consider to be an erroneous doctrine, explain why it's wrong, explain the correct doctrine without name calling and implying that every issue that you run across is a gospel issue and that the person is going to go to hell if they don't believe like you do. Okay, there is room for debate in the body. Okay, there is a lot more room than a lot of people want to give it credit for. There is plenty of room in the body for debate. Okay, the gospel is not some huge, complicated thing. Okay, yes, there is a lot of interesting, nuanced background. It's a deep thing. It really, truly is. The beauty about it is it's a very deep thing, but it's also a very simple thing. So we don't need to be going around making the gospel like super complicated, making it like that every single theological issue that you can come up with is a gospel issue. If you don't agree with a 5-point full-on Calvinism, you're going to hell. If you don't believe in full-on Catholicism, you're going to hell. If you know, this stuff is just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, it gets on my nerves so bad. And it's unnecessary, man. You know, the Orthodox have a way of thinking where they kind of say, look, we don't have to have a systematic theology for every single little minute point. We leave some of it up to the mysteries of God and, you know, just to mystery, you know. And a lot of these people, they think that they know every single little detail of how the Bible and how God is working on earth. Look, no, you don't. It's as simple as that. No, you don't. People try to make these systematic, you know, they try to do all this systematic stuff and say, oh, we've got it all figured out. Oh, we've got the confessions. That's another one. If you aren't confessional, oh, you don't subscribe to the 1689 Second London Baptist Confession of Faith. Oh, you're just lost in crazy world if you don't subscribe to the 1689 Second London Baptist Confession of Faith now. How could you? It's preposterous. You know, these confessions, they're man-made documents. I'm not saying being confessional is bad. I'm not saying it's bad at all. But look, you got to know what you believe and why you believe it. You can't just go confessional and say, well, if you get confused on a subject, say, oh, I'm going to go look at the confession and take that as equal to the scriptures. You just can't do that, okay? And look how there's all these different confessions. You got your Arminian confessions. You've got your Baptist confessions. You've got your you got your Arminian type Baptist confessions, and you got your 5-point Calvinist Baptist confessions, and you got all this stuff. And so if you've got someone that subscribes to the 1689 Second London Baptist Confession of Faith, right? And they say, oh, I'm confessional, all this church history, even though my church history only started in the Reformation period, and and someone like that is going to turn around and say, well, this other person who is confessional, they're heretic, they're all this stuff. Okay, sure, there are heresies, if you want to call it that, in the church. Plenty of false doctrine going on right now, but there is a way to deal with it, and the way to deal with it is not really doing it in the way that a lot of these guys are doing it. There are good discernment ministries out there. I do believe that, and there are plenty of good ones, but there's a lot of bad ones. These bad ones, they're like inquisitors, man. They really got the attitude of the inquisitors. They need to take a look at themselves in the mirror. Do these people really know everything? Do they think they know everything about the Bible and the way it works? And the work God is doing on earth? Do they really know everything about it as a human being? We're under a system that God's made. We've been given the scriptures that God's given us. That's not exactly the full story of what's going on. Now, someone might disagree with that. Look, it's what God wanted us to know. There's probably a lot more going on in the background. There's a story where there's a big army that comes to get Elisha, and one of his little disciple guys is freaking out. Elisha says, Lord, open his eyes. And God opens the little disciple's eyes, and he sees like a bunch of fiery chariots, all around the hills, going to protect him, right? Okay? It is that exact kind of situation right now. These people think they know everything. They have an attitude of an inquisitor. It's ridiculous. They need to stop. It's not the way to do things. Okay? And you might say, okay, well, sometimes you need to take a rough approach with someone. Okay, take a rough approach with someone. Do a David Wood style, But there's even ways of doing that. There's a way of doing that that's right. There's a way of doing it that's wrong. Okay? And these guys, it's prideful for them to think they know everything, and to think that they're in the position to say this is a gospel issue and the person isn't saved. Okay? It gets down to the point, it's like, well, what are the boundaries of the gospel? What is the definitions of the gospel? These guys branch everything out, and I get it. I do understand that line of thinking. But there is a boundary somewhere to where you've got your secondary issues and you've got your gospel issues. And a lot of these issues these guys try to paint out to be gospel issues just simply aren't. They simply aren't. And these guys are going around proclaiming with certainty that there's people going to hell. This and that person, William Lane Craig's going to hell. All this stuff. First of all, you don't know that. Second of all, you shouldn't be just confidently declaring it like you have the knowledge of God. We need bridge building, unity ministries, okay? That's all there is to it. We're supposed to try to be unified in the body. We don't need... Protestantism is already divided enough. We don't need to be doing this. And I understand that they think that, they're building up the real church or whatever. But give me a break, man. Just give me a break. You need to sometimes... the Bible tells us to examine ourselves. Some of these guys need to do that. They need to examine themselves badly. And that's all I got to say. I know this went on for a while, but I had to get this one off my chest. It's really aggravating to see these guys doing this all the time. Alright, see you guys.